Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Fullerton. And we are going to start off today by reading our purpose statement. We are a loving spiritual community, empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. And my name is Carol Riseling. I'm a practitioner here at our center, and I'm going to be your host today. I don't really have any announcements other than be thinking of a new slogan for 2021. What rhymes with 21? Fun! Hopefully we'll have more fun in 2021. We're still closed, but you can find us online. Tomoko's here during the week in the office, and we're always available by phone if you need help or prayer. And let's begin our service now with an invocation. So I just invite you all to get comfortable and relax. And breathing in together and letting it go, and just turn within to the center of our being. And we're just going to come together and celebrate that Christ consciousness, that love, the love for our church and everyone at home and everyone here recording it today. And recognizing that divinity within us, I bless our service and everyone who has made it possible for us to enjoy. Our wonderful Tommy, who keeps us inspired with his music. For Tomoko, for being here in the office and for recording our service. For my fellow practitioners who guide us in prayer and have us all in their prayers each and every day. For our board of trustees who lovingly take care of the business of our church. And I speak a word of blessing for our congregation, for everyone at home watching us and supporting us. And I know that everyone is loved and whole and healthy. And there are blessings today for Reverend Bill Salisbury, for his wonderful message that I know will touch and inspire each one of us. And I declare this service perfect and a blessing to us all, and so it is.
I need to be still, let God love me. Need to be still and let God love me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, I need to be still and let God love me.
A little Christmas reading for us today, and this comes from a famous Reverend Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, and this was written in 1995, and it comes from his magazine, the Guidepost magazine, and it's called A Gift of the Heart. In New York City, as Christmas time approaches, it becomes a city of lights and color, furs and jewels, wealth and power, where nothing in the world can match this fabulous display. People hurry to find last-minute gifts for recipients, and they're often looking around for anything that people don't really need or want. Just something that says, I love you. Well, last December, a young girl was faced with just that problem. She had come from Switzerland to live in an American home and perfect her English. In return, she was willing to act as secretary, take care of the grandchildren, and do any job that was asked. Her name was Ursula. One of the tasks she was given was to keep track of the many Christmas presents that arrived at the home. And there were so many, all she could think about was all the thank you notes she had to write. But she kept a faithful record with growing concern. She was worried because she thought, what gift could she possibly give to this family? At night, she would look out her window at the snowy expanse of Central Park, and it was so different than the Alps that she was used to seeing. She had to blink back tears of homesickness. And it was in this little room that she thought of an idea. And she was sure that so many people in this city must have need of something other than material things. So on Christmas Eve, her day off, she went to a department store and moved around the store, fighting back the crowds, and finally she selected something and had it wrapped in bright Christmas paper. Back on the street with the package under her arm, she was determined to find a poor family. She asked a policeman where a poor neighborhood was. Well, he told her she had no business going to the Lower East Side or Harlem. So she just continued walking, and suddenly she heard a familiar sound. Above the traffic noise, she heard the tinkle of a bell. And on the corner, a Salvation Army man was making his traditional Christmas appeal. Well, the Salvation Army was a part of life in Switzerland, too. And surely this man would help her. So she walked up to him and asked if he knew a family in need that had a baby. And she held up the brightly colored package and explained that she had a dress for a small baby girl and she wanted to give it to the poorest family she could find. The man told her he knew of a family in need and that his shift was almost over and he would take her over to their apartment if she could afford the taxi fare. Well, soon his relief came and they got into a taxi. And on the way, Ursula explained to him about how she came to be in New York and what she was trying to do with her special gift. They pulled up to a dark, dreary apartment building, and Ursula asked him to please take the gift up himself because, she explained, it is not from me. She handed him the present and told him, just say it's from someone who has everything. She and the taxi driver quickly left and went back to her apartment on Fifth Avenue. As she fumbled in her purse for the fare, the taxi driver said, "No charge. I've been paid already. Merry Christmas." The next day she was up early, setting the table and preparing for Christmas morning. The family woke up, and soon the living room was filled with laughter and excitement as gifts were opened. She thanked everyone for the presents she received, and finally she explained, "You may see that there's nothing really here from me." She then told them about her experience going to the department store, meeting the Salvation Army man, and then the taxi driver. And when she finished, there was a silence, and she explained, "You see, I tried to do a kindness in your name, and this is my Christmas present to you." How do I know all this? I know because ours was the home where Ursula lived. Ours was the Christmas she shared. And we, like many Americans, so richly blessed that there seemed to be nothing material that we needed, and she offered us something of greater value, a gift of the heart, an act of kindness, and it was carried out in our name. She brought the true spirit of Christmas into our lives, the spirit of selfless giving. Please join me in prayer. And just knowing and sensing that God is the one power, that one eternal light, that divine strength, that energy, that healing source that is within each one of us. And I know that we can never be separated from that source, that divine love. And recognizing this oneness, I know that at this time of year, we are filled with love and with that Christ consciousness, and we act and do and are that Christ consciousness. And we are aware and take this forward wherever we go with a smile on our face. And I just say, thank you, God, for this knowledge and this oneness. And I release my prayer into the law, knowing it is already done. And so it is.
There is one love. There is one power. There is one life eternal. God lives through me. God lives through me. God lives through me.
All right, coffee cappuccino, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, how blessed we are. So good morning. I am Reverend Bill Salisbury. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here today, continuing on this month's theme, Love and Light and the Christ Consciousness. And the title of today's talk is The True Happiest Place on Earth. It's not necessarily Disneyland. That's not to say at times it's not. But, let me just give you the punchline, and then we'll back up into it, okay? The true, real, happiest place on earth is right here, right now. And that arguably could be said to be the same thing. Understanding that God, the creator of all things, the one responsible for instilling in us and in everything and all being everywhere for eternity, that Christ consciousness that we are so well aware of, especially this time of year, did not create time or space. There's none of that in God. We created that. Just because we just love to create stuff for ourselves. And as ways of working through the world. But the fact is, if you stop and think about it, really, is there a difference in time and place? No. If we are in the present moment, if I'm talking to you from a Gnostic personal experience that I'm going through right this second and am present for, the time is the place. Because I'm not in another place at this time. Now, on those occasions when I might be daydreaming, Or say, well, over in New Zealand, but still the people who are experiencing that over there, wherever it is I'm talking about, they are in that moment, in that place. That is one and the same thing, is it not? I just wrapped up a 2-week gig with the 2nd grade. How blessed was I right here and heading into Christmas for the little 6 and 7-year-olds. And I want to start today like I start every day with them. Today is Sunday, the 13th of December, 2020. This is the only Sunday, the 13th of December, 2020, there is ever going to be. Therefore, we are grateful for this day. And this is a great day to have a great day. If we can't celebrate the only this day, just like we should be celebrating the only this moment that ever is, forgetting for a second that this moment is eternal, that we're never going to be out of it, but we do have to be aware that we're in it. We have to be present for it. So there's no difference between me being in the moment and being in the place, because at any given moment, the place and the moment are the same. And the only place we can be happy is here. So yeah, some days that might be Disneyland. Some days that might be the laundry room, folding the clothes that just came out of the dryer. Doesn't matter where it is. That's the place, the truest, happiest place on earth at any given time, in any given situation. Oh, I know. We talk about things like, well, okay, Bill, but really, we live in the real world. The real world. Oh, and it's true. We have that world, right? We have that world that has anxieties in it and has hardships in it and has things that we aren't particularly fond of going through, as well as having things that we do like and things that we do love and the things that do excite us and interest us. We have those ups and downs. We've talked about this before. That roller coaster of life is the real world, but it's only the real world because we allow it to be. Do we get that? We allow that world to be. I'm thinking sometimes, why don't we just fess up to this? The real world is not that at all. That's the fantasy world that we allow our human selves to live in and to be subject to and to be slaves to. The real world is that Christ consciousness. That real world is that love and that light and that beauty and that peace that comes to us when we are aware, when we are in our right mind in the real world, knowing that that's who we are. Knowing that's the basis of who we are, and that's what we were created for. But then, somehow we just get away from that and we reinvent, we make up our own real world. And Carol, I love that reading, thank you, especially the part about, well, two parts. The part about hurrying and hustling and bustling, and getting people gifts that they don't want and don't need. I mean, how often does that happen? More often probably than we care to think about it. But Mother Teresa was one who didn't think we should do that hurrying. We remember her, right? And she says that the disruption of the peace of the world begins at home, meaning in our minds, in our heads, and it begins there because we allow what we call the real world to take over the truth of who we are sometimes temporarily, but even when it's temporary, let's be honest. Do we spend more time in that world or more time in that Christ consciousness world, in that world of God, where we live and move and have our being? Which one do we spend the most time in? Now, when we get to that place where we can be spending time doing real world stuff, but doing it not of this world, which is what our new thought thing is all about, right? Being in the world but not of it. And that's great. So that's a big plus. Then we are understanding more and we're getting more out of this. Mother Teresa also said that any failure in the unity of our world, of life, is just a failure of love. So if we have some sort of a violation in the unity in the fabric, that community fabric that we are, is because we've lost some sense of loving who we are, who something else is, who someone else is. Yeah, someone or something. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about a little bit of a twist on interconnectedness. He calls it interbeingness. And that is so correct. Interbeingness. It says we have to incorporate into our world, incorporate into our happiest place, everything in our surroundings. That in fact, there is no self to be experienced without non-self entities. Do you get that? But those non-self entities is what we call them. When we understand our interbeingness with them, because remember, when everything that is, when this manifest universe came into being, it was made out of the only substance there is. It was made by God, out of God's substance, powered by divine power. So there is nothing ever anywhere, even the things that we make, and we pride ourselves on we made them, not God, not somebody else, not something else. But what did we make them out of? We made them out of things that were placed here for our benefit, and we do have an interbeingness with them. You know what kids say, don't you? I mean, kids personify, right? They animate. The shovel becomes a walking tool. It kind of digs itself in the ground. You know, the iron has a smiley face and irons their clothes for them. And when I stop to think about it, I think, you know what? When I was a kid, I understood that. I understood that everything was part and parcel of me and I was of them. And then somewhere along the line, we get a little bit jaundiced to that, maybe a little hardened to it, and think, well, no, that's not what the real world's all about. And I'm not going to call it fantasy, but we could. But maybe there's nothing wrong with a little bit of fantasy. I want to read you a little excerpt that I saw that I really liked. Not as much as you're reading, but I like this. This is from In Things Invisible to See. The first time Davy saw Ernestina, she was boiling water for tea and talking to Aunt Helen's tea kettle. She was polite and persuasive. She told it the advantages of boiling. She told it about the other pots waiting to take its place. She put her hands on her hips and said, "Pot, what is your determination in this matter?" And the pot boiled. Haven't we all had that experience? The things I've talked to as a child, oh dear. The things I've talked to as an adult, sometimes there are certain groups and situations that I can't even talk about that in. They'd be hauling me off one of those little white suits, you know. You said what to what? And even after I insist that it worked, they might still want to carry me off, so. We watched a movie, Deb and I, the other night, and it was about a gal, a young woman, and in the movie she was 26 and she was a college student and she had got started late. And as the movie unfolds, it turns out that the reason for that is because she'd had quite a stifled childhood, read abusive, addictive mother who at one time had sold her for money for drugs, and a father who wasn't there, and blah, blah, blah. And at this time in her life, in the story, she was holding down 3 jobs while she was going to school. She was a dog walker and a tutor, and a tutor to young kids, and then she worked some other sort of job. And then she took on this group therapy thing where she was a facilitator in a group therapy group for younger women, teenage girls. And at some point in the story, her friend is quizzing her about, why are you doing this? It's like you got 3 jobs, you're going to school, and now you're taking this on. And she said, I'll be fine. She says, you're going to wear yourself out. She says, I'll be fine as long as I keep moving. And I thought, doesn't that just sum it up? I'll be fine just as long as I keep moving. Because don't we feel sometimes that if we stop moving, now we're an easier target for the ailments and the woes of life to hit us? But if we just keep moving, we're moving too fast for anything like that to get a grip on us. But it's not so. It just isn't so. Because even if we can convince ourselves that there's happiness in the rat race, the hurry and the hustle and bustle, let's say we convince ourselves that there's a solid purpose behind that, and we need to be doing this for whatever that purpose is, we're not being honest with ourselves. We call that, making the end justify the means, or the means justify the end, when really they ought to be justifying themselves all the way along the line. We don't have to do that. We don't have to get into that hurry. We don't have to do that rushing, because that's what Mother Teresa was talking about the hurrying and the rushing. If we want to be in our happy place, and I'm going to say our happy time, that means we need not to be giving that time to something else that's not as important as us just being in that space, in that time, when our oneness with God is the only thing we are thinking of. And it's the only thing we need, and it's the only thing we want. Because, remember the Buddhists, that all suffering comes from the desire to hold on to something. Well, if we're going to have desire, if we're going to hold on to something, why wouldn't that desire and that eagerness, that willingness, that need to hold on, why wouldn't that be directed at the only thing that's truly important in our lives? The only thing that is truly important in our lives is that essence of who we are, which is our place in God. God did not become me to be in a rat race. I don't need to keep moving. In fact, the only time I can be in the happiest place in the world is when I settle into that place. And if I'm going to do that, the only time I can do it's right now. It doesn't matter where I am. Wherever I am is my time, and that's the happy place. So remembering that it's not Mother Teresa, is it? It's Saint Teresa now. And Saint Teresa herself would tell you this. Remember we talked about Angel Stadium last week being full of all the saints and saviors and avatars and prophets? All the saints are just sinners who refuse to give up to the world, to the real world. Do we get that? Because we all come here, we've got that divinity, but we also have that humanness to us. And it's that humanness is what makes our mistakes. Because that's what we call being a sinner, right? Is making mistakes. That's all that's about. But saints are just those who went through those things and didn't let them bog them down. They said, thank you, no. Mistake, thank you, no. Done with you. I'm onward and upward. And I am remaining, staying forever in my happy place and time. But for right here, we are, how can I say this? We are essentially, we're flopping on God's couch. Okay? We're house guests, right? Hey, could I crash here tonight? Well, it's just that tonight sometimes is 70, 80, 100 years, or sometimes less than that. But isn't that what we're doing? We're crashing on God's couch. We're house guests. We're guests in this plane of existence. But if we were house guests somewhere, don't we generally do a little something to help out so that we're carrying our own weight and we're not making our benefactor, if you will, feel bad about having put us up? And don't we leave the place, at least as neat as we found it? We should. We don't leave our... Well, I can't speak for everybody, but we don't leave our dirty socks and t-shirts laying around the floor surrounding the couch. Well, sometimes maybe that happens, I don't know. But those are the times when we take things for granted. But the thing that we can't take for granted, we can't take for granted this. The real happiest place on earth is where we are, when we are in touch with that Christ consciousness that is the essence of who we are. So I'd just like to leave you with this word. I'd like to leave you with this little short prayer from Ernest Holmes, our founder, the founder and father, if you will, of Science of Mind. And he said that the circle of love is complete. Because when we find our happy place and when we are in that happy moment and know what it is and who we are in it, our circle of love is complete. It comprehends all, it includes all, binds all together with cords of everlasting unity. Unity with all things, all beings that enter beingness. We cannot depart from his presence, nor can we wander from his care, because our love then is complete within us. And when our love is complete within us, each of us, then the world becomes the happiest place on earth for everybody. It's just with grateful heart that I acknowledge this to be the case, that I recognize, realize, and surrender to this fact, that if I love and every I loves, the world is a loving place, and it will be the happiest place for us. So it is. Amen. Thank you.
I am thankful, so grateful. I am one in the Spirit all around me. I am thankful, so grateful. I trust in God.
So this is that time of our service where we have that ability to give back. And even though we're not open and in a full service, and we'll just pretend that everything is as usual. We're just so grateful for your continued gifts from the heart. And those at home, thank you so much for continuing to send your support dollars in by way of mail or donation online or running down here to the office and just giving it to Tomoko. Thank you. So let's read our prosperity affirmation, please. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join the divine flow. All that I share with life returns to be multiplied abundantly, and so it is.
World waits for a miracle. A heart longs for a little bit of hope. Oh come, Emmanuel. A child begs for peace on earth, and she cries out and sings the words, oh come, Emmanuel. So can you hear the angels singing, glory to the light of the world, glory, for the light of the world is here. Drought breaks with the tears of a mother. A baby cries, the sound of love coming down, come down, Emmanuel. Here's the song for the suffering. Here's the sign that the word of peace has come. Oh, come, Emmanuel. Oh, glory to the light of the world. Glory to the light of the world. For all who wait, for all who hunger, for all who pray, for all who wander, Glory to the light of the world. Glory to the light of the world. The world waits for a miracle. The heart sings with a song of hope. Oh come, Emmanuel.
Just a reminder that our practitioners are always here, ready, willing, and able, and eager to share a prayer with you. So you can reach us by way of email, telephone, or calling the office here, and we'll make arrangements to set in prayer with you at any time at your convenience. So don't forget we're here. Please use us. And let's just know this, just between us, something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening right now.
It's happening in my mind.
It's happening in my mind.
It's happening in my body.
It's happening in my body.
It is this Christ consciousness that I revel in, that I am secure in, that I rest safely in, forever and always. I know it, accept it.
I accept it.
Thank you, God, in me.